Hello everyone, my name is Adeeba and I'm from Katihar Medical College. We were studying about plant kingdom. We have already been through algae and bryophyte in a great detail and we will start from pteridophytes in this session. So, pteridophytes come under Tracheophyta. We have discussed a flow chart right at the beginning of when we started plant kingdom, that there is a chart in which all these different plants are classified, and their names are actually derived from wherever the important characteristics of all these plants lie. So the first is, if we see plant kingdom, first of all, plant kingdom is actually plant kingdom. So there are five classes. First one is algae, second one is bryophyte, the third is pteridophyte, then gymnosperm, and then angiosperm. We know that. We are very well through it. Algae and bryophyte we have already covered in the previous sessions in a very great detail as well. Now, in this session, we will deal with pteridophytes, its important characteristics, what are the important points regarding pteridophytes, its features, and the important plants that are present in it. Now, pteridophytes actually come under the embryophyta. Algae is not the embryophyta. We divide plant kingdom in two parts. One is embryophyta and the other one is algae, that is without embryo. There is no embryo formation, but in embryophyta there is embryo formation. Now embryophyta is divided into two categories. One is the bryophyta and the other one is tracheophyta. Now, bryophyta lacks xylems and phloem. It means that tracheophyta are the kind of plant which do not have a conducting system. A proper vascular conducting system is absent in bryophyte, and this is the main reason we have seen that bryophyte couldn't attain a great height. They have always remained the short-statured plant. They have always remained in marshy and damp, watery areas. Because of their requirement of water, they have to stay near the land in order for their survival. But Tracheophyta, they developed xylem and vessels. Tracheophyta are the plants which have xylem and phloem. Now, when the evolution of xylem and phloem took place, it was observed that the length of the plant keeps on increasing. And because of the presence of xylem and phloem, we know that the xylem and phloem not only helps in the conduction, but it also helps in the mechanical support of the plant to stand erect. When we see around us, the dominating plants that are present around us are mainly all those plants who have a proper and well developed conducting system, and that is present in pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. And this is the reason why the presence of xylem and phloem is an important thing which is required for the best survival of all those plants which are around us. Now, Tracheophyta, in Tracheophyta, we see that there are again two divisions on the basis of seed. Tracheophyta are first of all the vascular plants, and on the basis of seeds, if the plant has seed, it is called as spermatophyta, and under spermatophyta, angiosperm and gymnosperm comes because in these two, angiosperm and gymnosperm, the seed is present. In the cases of gymnosperm, the seed is naked, whereas in the case of angiosperm, the seed is covered with a fruit. Whereas the other classification, the other part is pteridophyta. Pteridophyta are seedless vascular plants. So whenever a single termed question is asked, that name the plants which are seedless vascular plants. So if we say that seedless plants, then algae, bryophyte, and pteridophyte, all the three plants come under this category. But if we mention seedless vascular plants, then it is sure that this plant is pteridophyte. If we say vascular, vascular spermatophyta in which the seeds are uncovered, naked seeded plant, then it is gymnosperm. And if we say that seeds are covered with fruit, then it is very surely angiosperms, which is the most dominant plant in our whole ecosystem. Now we begin with pteridophytes. Pteridophytes, it is derived from a Latin word. We have seen that most of the other names are derived from Greek word, but pteridophyte is derived from Latin word, which means pteris, the fern, and phyton is plant. Pteridophytes are the other name for pteridophytes is ferns. They are also called as ferns. Pteridophytes are the first terrestrial seedless vascular plants. So the first terrestrial or land plants were bryophytes, but the terrestrial seedless plants they are pteridophytes, possessing xylem and phloem. So these were the plants in which the xylem and phloem developed first. Now comprising about 30,000 species, they have around 30,000 species. These are commonly called as ferns. We know that they are commonly referred to as ferns. The existing ferns are mainly small plants, but a few primitive ferns grow to over 20 meters. So these ferns are mainly very small, but some primitive plants might can go to over 20 meters. These are usually perennial and grow in cool, shady, and moist places, both in the hills and in the plains. Perennial, the term refers to when the plant grows throughout the year. Okay, and they have also a requirement that they grow usually in cool, shady areas and in moist places, which we usually see in hilly areas. The plants which we see in hilly areas are mostly pteridophytes, and they are very beautiful. Pteridophytes are actually referred to as ornamental plants. Bryophytes are referred to as the medicinal plants. They play an important role in the medicine. Many of the medicines are extracted from bryophytes. So if a single term question is asked that medicinal plants are mostly comprising of, they are bryophytes. Whereas the ornamental plants, the beautiful plants which we see, they are usually pteridophytes. So they are grown as ornamental plants for their beautiful leaves, called as fronds. Yes, they are called as ornamental plants for their beautiful leaves because they have very beautiful leaves and which we term as fronds. Salvinia and Marciella are the aquatic ferns. So there are two aquatic ferns, Salvinia and Marciella. Common Indian ferns are Dryopteris, Aspisdium, and Pteris adianthum. After the forest fire, ferns are the first plant to appear as their underground rhizome develops new leaves. So, whenever a forest fire takes place, some mishap takes place in the forest. So, the ferns are the first one to appear in that particular area where the fire has been because they have a vegetative kind of a reproduction by the help of rhizome. Rhizome is actually an underground stem. Inside, there is an underground stem from which the leaves arise. So when the leaves arise from underground stem, the most common rhizome which we see is ginger. The leaves arise from it. So after a forest fire, ferns are the first plants to appear as underground rhizome, which develop into new leaves. Now, general characters of the pteridophytes. Ferns, they are the seedless. We know that they are seedless. That is why they are not in the part of spermatophyta. Spore producing. So if the seeds are not produced, spores are produced. Vascular plants found in humid tropical area, temperate areas, humid tropical and temperate areas. Some ferns grow in subarctic conditions also. So they usually grow in humid tropical and temperate areas where the temperature doesn't rise much. They grow in the areas where there is a bit of cool and calmy temperature. Now, some ferns grow in subarctic conditions as well. The plant body is sporophyte. We have seen that the gametophytic plant body remains still algae and bryophyta, whereas when we start from pteridophyte, the main plant body gets converted into sporophyte. Now, the dominating plant is sporophyte and it will produce spore, which will then form the gametophyte and then the gametes are produced, differentiated into true stem, root, and leaf. The stem is an underground rhizome by which ferns reproduce vegetatively. So, stem, it forms an underground rhizome from which the stems and roots, true stem, root, and leaf arise. The leaves, it may be small microphyllous. The leaves can be very small as microphyllous. Micro means small and phyllis, it means uh, leaves, as in lycopodium and equisetum, or can be macrophyllis. Macro means large and phyllis is leaf, as in terrace, pteridium. These are called as fronds. So when the leaves are large, they are termed as fronds. In most ferns, leaves are pinnately compound. Pinnately compound leaves are those in which the leaf blade, it has been divided into a small leaflet. It is a complete leaf, but the leaf blade is divided in such a way that we think that the leaflets are the actual leaves. This is a leaflet. Usually, this is how a leaf appears. But in the case of pinnately compound leaves, the leaves are born in such a way, and it appears that these are the actual leaves, but they are leaflets. And this is a complete leaf. Okay, the leaf blade is divided into leaflets. They may be unipinnate. It might be only one pinnate is present, or when the leaflets are directly borne on rachis, bipinnate or tripinnate. Can be bipinnate, tripinnate. When the leaflets are further subdivided once or twice. Now, young leaves show circulate tices. That is, they are coiled like a watch spring. This coiling protects the growing point. Now, the young leaves, they grow in such a manner. And by this help in a circulate spiral pattern, they prevent and protect the growing point. The growing point which is present, it is protected by these leaves because they are coiled on that particular point. So the general characters are that first of all, it is termed as ferns. The pteridophytes, they are ferns and they are very beautiful. The leaves are very beautiful. That is the reason why they are usually used as an ornamental plant. The ferns, they are seedless and spore-producing vascular plants found in humid, tropical, and temperate areas. They are usually found in cool places, as in hilly areas and mountains. The plant body is sporophytic, which is different from the other two which we have studied up till now. The stem is an underground rhizome, as in ginger. Ginger is also a rhizome, but it comes under angiosperm. But the stem in it is an underground rhizome, and by the help of which the pteridophytes they reproduce vegetatively. Now about the leaves are either macrophylous or microphyllus. Microphyllus are very small leaf and macrophyllus are large leaf, and sometimes the leaves are pinnately compound. There is the leaf is in the leaf plate there are some connections present which appear that the leaflets are the actual leaf. The young leaves show a circular pattern. There is a spiral coiling on the growing point, which is the reason why the growing point remains hidden and it is protected from the outer environment. Now, the younger parts of the stem, young leaves, petiole, and the rachis of mature leaves possess hair or scales called ramenta. So the younger parts of the stem, they have a hairy-like structure, which is termed as ramenta. Now, ramenta protects them from the mechanical injury and desiccation. Sometimes we have seen that some plants they are a bit hairy. The stem, the leaf, it is bit hairy if we touch. While some leaves they are very smooth. The cuticle is present on them, but the some that is hairy. The hair-like projections which is present on the surface of the stem, the leaf, in the petiole and in the rachis of the mature leaves, it is termed as ramenta, and ramenta is present whenever there is an excessive growth of something on the surface of leaf or on the stem. It is usually protective, either in any way, protection from the desiccation, protection from the any animal or something, but any of the growth which is present on plants, it is usually an unusual growth which is present, usually protective in nature. So this ramenta is also a protective structure which is present, a hairy-like structure which prevents the plant from desiccation. Now, vegetative reproduction is by fragmentation. We know that it takes place by rhizome, adventitious buds, and bulbils, etc. So, adventitious buds are also present. In the case of potato, adventitious buds are present. In the case of ginger, rhizome is present, and bulbils. Bulbils are usually seen in chrysanthemum. Okay, so these are the common examples by which you can relate that how the vegetative reproduction is taking place in case of pteridophytes. Adiantum is often called as walking fern. It is usually asked that name the plant which is called as walking fern. Ferns we know that comes under pteridophyte, but what fern is called as walking fern? So it is Adiantum. We have to remember this. It's an important point. Because its leaf tip, when comes in contact with the soil, develops an adventitious root and new leaves and develops into a new plant. So why is it termed as walking fern? Because its leaf tip, when it comes to contact of a soil, it will give rise to another plant. And when the another plant's leaf tip is going to come in contact of the soil, it will grow into another plant. So this cycle goes on and it looks like the fern is walking. This is the reason why it is called as walking fern. Sporangia occur on the undersurface of leaves in clusters called as sori. So, sporangia is also called as sori. The leaves-bearing sporangia are called as sporophylls. Haploid meiospores are formed inside the sporangia. A sorus is covered by a flap-like outgrowth from its surface, true in sedum as Triopteris, or torn margin of the sporophyll, false in sedum as in adiantum. So the leaves, under surface of the leaves, there are clusters, some kind of clusters present. If we assume that this is the leaf, so there are some clusters present which are termed as sori. Okay? And this sori is actually a sporangia inside which meiosis takes place and meiospores are produced. And this leaf plus sori, we call it as sporophyll. Sporo, by sporo means spore and phyll means leaf. The leaf which is producing spore. So the leaf under which sori are present, it is termed as sporophyll. Now inside this sporangia, meiosis takes place and haploid meiospores are produced. As the sorus is covered by a flap-like outgrowth from its surface, it might be that the sori are covered with a true cap, and when they are covered by a true cap, as in case of Bryopteris, it is as a flap-like outgrowth. But when the torn margin of the sporophyll is covering the sori, then it is false. It is a false cap, as in a case of adiantum. Now, in some cases, sporophylls may form distinct compact structure called as strobili or cones. We have seen that in the case of adiantum, the sori are present, but in case of Selaginella and equisetum, cones are formed. Conical-like structure is formed right at the top of the leaf-bearing stem. If you assume that this is the stem and leaves are present all over the stem, so the upper part is usually sporophyll. It is conical in structure and it is a sporophyll inside which the sporangia is present. Now, most pteridophytes are homosporous, that is, they produce only one type of spores, as in Lycopodium, Equisetum, etc. Some are heterosporous, they produce two types of spores, large macrospores that germinate into female and small microspore that male gametophyte. In case of in case of bryophytes, we have seen that the gametophytic plant body was the dominant plant body, but the sporophytic one was the parasitic, and it usually depends upon the main plant body for its nutrition. But in this case, the sporophytic plant body is not uh, parasitic; it is the main plant body. Whereas the gametophytic plant body, it is also an independent plant body. When the gametophytic plant body develops in case of pteridophytes, it is also independent. We are seeing that first, in case of algae and bryophyte, the dominant one was sporophytic, that was N. In case of pteridophyte, the dominant is 2N, whereas the N, it is also an independent body, whereas 2N, independent body. In case of gymnosperm and angiosperm, we will see that the dominant plant body is 2N, that is sporophyte, whereas the N, gametophytic plant body, is dependent on these two. We see that how the tables have turned. First, the gametophytic plant body was dominant and sporophytic one was depending upon the dominant plant body. But now the tables have turned to so much that the sporophytic plant body is now the dominant one and the gametophytic one has started depending upon it. So this is the cycle which is going through whole of the plant kingdom. As we are moving, evolution is taking place and there is differences in how sporophytic and gametophytic plant body is differentiated. We have to keep this in mind. It is a very important thing which is present in the plant kingdom, and if an examiner asks us the question about it, so it becomes a very good question. So the gametophyte is thalloid, called as prothallus. Now the gametophyte is prothallus, and see, it is living and bears sex organs, antheridia and archegonia. The sporophytic plant body produces spores, and the spores can be either same type or can be of different type. If they are of different type, it is usually the male and the female spores. And when these male and the female spores germinate, they give rise to gametophytic plant body, which is a prothallus. And this prothallus is living and it will bear sex organs, antheridia and archegonia. And when these two will fuse, it will give rise to the sporophytic plant body. So the cycle that is going on, we have understood that. Now, the sexual reproduction is oogamous type. Mostly we have seen since we have started studying bryophytes and pteridophytes, the type of reproduction, sexual reproduction has shifted towards the oogamous. Whereas in algae, we were seeing that isogamous and isogamous, oogamous, all of them were taking place. But now oogamous has started. Antheridia need water for dehiscence and liberation of antherozoids and for the movement of the antherozoids to archegonia. So, in cases of bryophytes and pteridophytes, both of them, the presence of water is an essential thing which they require for the movement of antherozoids to the archegonia for the fertilization. And this is the main reason why they require damp and humid places. Archegonia are flask shape. We all know the shape of archegonia. It looks something like this, a flask bearing egg structure that are partially embedded in the prothallus. So, prothallus, which is between protonema is the prothallus, and it is partially embedded in the prothallus, not completely, but partially. The neck of the archegonium has four rows of cells. So, four rows of cell is present at the neck of the archegonium, which will help which will help in the recognition of the antherozoids and its fertilization. Now, fertilization and development of zygotes into young embryo take place within the young gametophyte. So, zygote development will take place in the young gametophyte, that is prothallus. The life cycle shows alternation of generation in which a dominant plant is sporophyte and an inconspicuous gametophyte alternate with each other. Okay, so the dominant one is sporophyte and it will alternate with the inconspicuous gametophytic plant body throughout their lives. Now these are some common pteridophytes. We see there is the presence of cone-like structure at the end of the stem. So it will also act as a cone or strobili, which will possess chlorophyll, whereas it will also protect the growing part of the stem. Because they are spirally arranged, the growing part of the stem is hidden from the external environment. So this is an figure of a selaginella. Equisetum, the rhizome which we see, the rhizome, there are lateral stem which is arising from it. Leaves are present and node and internode in wherever the leaves are seen, and in this case the cone-like structure strobilus is very frequently seen. Now Salvina has macrophyls. We can see that it has macrophyls, large leaves which are termed as fronds. In case of Marcella, the rhizome, the rhizome stem which we can see here, and from the rhizome the main stem has arisen, the petiole is present, and the leaves. We can see macrophyls are present in case of Marcella, and they have a very peculiar shape. Okay, a very peculiar shape, and which makes them beautiful and used as an ornamental plant. Now, the economic importance of pteridophyte. They have mainly ornamental value. They are usually used as ornamental. There is not much importance of pteridophytes. Ecologically, they are benefited because they are the first one to colonize whenever forest fire take place because they have rhizomes which help in their vegetative reproduction. But other importance of it is not yet seen. And the second is that they are used as ornamental plants because their leaves are very beautiful. So the first one is ornamental plant. Because of their delicate and graceful foliage, ferns are grown as ornamental plants in gardens. So they are usually grown in gardens. Second, drugs, rhizomes, and petioles of Bryopteris yield an antithelmin Antihelminthic drugs, the rhizomes and petioles of Bryopteris, it will yield antihelminthic drugs. Lycopodium is useful in the treatment of rheumatism, and roots of adiantum help in curing of throat infection. Throat infection, we have seen that mulethi, which is used, it is actually a rhizome, which is used in cases of sore throat. So, some drugs are also obtained from pteridophytes. Food, ascocarps of water fern, Marcellia, are rich source of starch, so they can also be used as food. Soil binding, pteridophytes bind the soil and prevent its erosion. We have seen that in the hilly areas, soil erosion takes place whenever water falls. So, in order to prevent that, two of the plants are very important. First one is bryophytes, and the second one is pteridophytes because they have rhizoids and they have rhizomes which will not lead all the soil from the topmost layer and result in soil erosion. Scouring. Ecosystem stems are used in scouring, cleaning of the utensils, and polishing of metals. So the stems of ecosystem they are used in cleaning of some utensils and polishing of the metals. Biofertilizer. Azolla, a water form, has a symbiotic association with the nitrogen-fixing bacterium Anabaena, and it is inoculated to paddy field to function as a biofertilizer. We have seen one symbiotic association in the plant kingdom that was algae and fungus. Algae and fungus, they are known as lichen and they are an indicator of pollution. Whereas the biofertilizer, the association between azolla, a water fern, and anabaena, which is a nitrogen fixing bacteria, they both are a very good symbiotic association which help in nitrogen fixation in the soil as well as the nitrogen fixation of the soil as well as increasing the capacity of the soil in binding. The binding capacity of the soil is also increased and the amount of nutrition which is present in the soil is also increased by the help of this symbiotic association. So they are also used as biofertilizer. Not many of the uses of pteridophytes are usually seen, but some are as used as an ornament, which is the most common. The second one is drugs, sometimes used as food, that are as cups of water fern and marcella, which is a rich source of starch, can be used in soil binding. It will prevent soil erosion. Scouring is actually using of plant parts for cleaning on for the purpose of cleaning as in case with ecosystem and can be used as biofertilizer because azolla, a water fern, which has a symbiotic association with nitrogen-fixing bacteria, cyanobacterium anabaena, it is inoculated to paddy field to function as a biofertilizer. Now, classification of pteridophyta. Classification of pteridophyta is based on the structure of the plant usually. So there are divided into four classes: Psilopsida, Lycopsida, Sphenopsida, and Pteropsida. P is silent. So Psilopsida, Lycopsida, Sphenopsida, and Pteropsida. There are the four classes. Now, Psilopsida. Psilopsida, the plant body is rootless. Sporophyte differentiated into a subterranean rhizome and an aerial shoot. So there is a subterranean rhizome is present, and there is an aerial shoot. Branching is dichotomous in both subterranean scale-like scale-like or leaf-like appendages are borne spirally on the aerial shoots. So when the aerial shoots are present of either scale-like or spirally coiled, the sporangia develop over the aerial stem terminally or axillary. So the sporangia, I have also shown you that they are usually born terminally. If we assume that this is the terminal portion, so the sporangia, it will be born terminally. Okay, they are thick-walled and homosporous. Thick-walled and homosporous antherozoids are multiflagellate. The antherozoids which are produced, they are multiflagellate, and the example of Psilopsida are Rhinia, which is extinct, and Psilotum. Okay, so Psilopsida, the example is Psilotum. Now, Psilotum. Psilotum grows on soil. It also grows as an epiphyte. Epiphyte is a plant which grows on another plant and extracts its nutrition from the other plant. So the plant body is differentiated into rhizome. This is rhizome and an aerial stem. The aerial stem, aerial stem and rhizome. The roots are absent. There, there is absence of root. Rhizome is non-green, branched, and subterranean, bearing stem and filamentous rhizoid. So the rhizome, it bears some rhizoids, and it is non-green, brownish in color, branched, branching is present, and bearing filamentous rhizoid. Stem is green and dichotomously branched, so it is highly branched and greenish in color. It bears number of scales, so scaly-like surface is present. It reproduces vegetatively by gamma and asexually by spores. So in the sporangium, spores are produced and it develops asexually by the help of spores. And sometimes gamma cup are also present in the case of xylotum. And when gamma cups are produced, gamma are produced, and these gamma will help in the vegetative reproduction of xylotum. Gamma, a small multicellular structure born over the rhizome. Now, over this rhizome, there are gamma-like structure present which will help in vegetative reproduction. Spores develop meiotically in short-stalked, trilobed cyangia or compound sporangia. So, the spores they develop meiotically in short, stalked, trilobed cyangia or it may be compound sporangia. The cyangium develops in the axial of a bilobed foliar appendage. So, the cyangium is actually develops on the axil of the bilobed foliar appendage. This appendage, this appendage, the bilobed foliar appendage on which the cyangium is present and inside which the spores are produced. Now the spores they are dispersed by air. Okay, these spores are dispersed by air, and on a suitable substratum, each spore germinates to form a colorless prothallus. This prothallus has an endophytic fungus. It can have an endophytic fungus that aids in its nutrition. Now, whenever the spores they germinate, when they germinate, they form on a suitable substratum. When the spores germinate, they form a colorless prothallus, and sometimes this prothallus they have an association with an endophytic fungus. Now, this endophytic fungus, this will aid the prothallus in extracting nutrition from the soil. Now, this prothallus multiplies and vegetatively with the help of gamma. We know that this prothallus has gamma. The rhizoids have gamma. It reproduces sexually by the formation of antheridia and archegonia. And on this prothallus, antheridia and archegonia are produced, and it will give rise to the formation of antherozoids and egg. On fertilization, embryo is formed which grows to produce a new sporophytic plant. The sporophytic plant will give rise to the production of spores. Now these spores germinate and they will give rise to prothallus. This prothallus sometimes has an association with endophytic fungus, and this endophytic fungus helps in the nutrition, absorption of nutrition. Now, this prothallus will have antheridia and archegonia. The antheridia will give rise to production of antheridospores or sperms, and archegonia will give rise to eggs when the fertilization takes place, give rise to zygote, and this zygote will produce new gametophytic plant. Okay, so this is a simple cycle, the alternation of generation which we see that goes on in the case of xylotum or even in all the pteridophytes. So we have completed the introductory part of pteridophytes and its important characteristics, some of its ecological importance, and one of its important class, that is Psilopsida, which is called as whisk fern, and inside which comes Rhinia, that is extinct, and Xylotum. The Xylotum we have also discussed the structure of it. It has an underground rhizome and aerial stem. The aerial stem, it will be a scaly-like structures, and on the end of which there is present sporophylls, whereas the rhizome, it is a non-green part of the plant which bears rhizoids and the gamma cups. The gamma cups will help in the vegetative reproduction, whereas the sporophylls, the spores which are produced there, they also help in the vegetative reproduction of xylem. In the next session, we will look into Lycopsida, Pteropsida, and Sphenopsida, and some other important points which are related to pteridophytes. Thank you so much.